Welcome back to the second hour of our study. We're at halftime. Something came up talking about homosexual gender identity kind of switching of gay men being more female in their approach with their communication and talking and everything, and lesbian women being more cut and dried bottom line thing. I'm going to show you a man who is a super bottom line kind of guy, no nonsense, named Ben Shapiro, in a situation with, actually, and about, well, not with Caitlyn Bruce Jenner, but with that being the discussion. And I think you'll find it quite interesting in how this men-women thing works and what society is going through right now. So let's see if this is not a real politically correct kind of thing, but I think it's very informative.
So, I'm told that I'm going to be on this Dr. Drew show on CNN, Headline News. And I ask who's going to be on the panel, because I always ask when I go into hostile territory, and CNN certainly qualifies for that. And they told me there will be 6 other panelists. And I say, okay, fine. You know, that's fine with me. 1 on 6 makes it almost fair for them. So that's okay. We can do that. And I look at the list on the panel, and I look up everybody's bio, and they're all media figures. And one person happens to be a transgender woman, a man who transitioned over to being a female, if such a thing made any sort of sense. And and they put 3 chairs kind of off stage, facing the stage. And in those chairs, they put a black dude and this transgender woman and me. And they seat the 2 of us next to each other, the transgender woman and me, Zui Tor and me. And of course, I knew immediately that they're trying to spark something to happen by seating us next to each other. But that is not my interest. When I go on these shows, all I want to do is say my piece. I really have no interest in doing anything other than saying my piece. And as anybody who has ever seen me on TV understands, my typical goal when I'm talking with folks on the left is to have a calm and rational discussion, which almost never happens because the left is patently incapable of calm and rational discussion, as was eminently proved on the show last night, which was intensely wild. So the show begins, and they start with the Caitlyn Jenner issue. And Dr. Drew turns to me, and he asks me if Caitlyn Jenner deserved the award. And here's what I say.
Man, does she deserve this award?
For what?
For courageously coming forward, for having been an athlete of great prowess, and now fighting a new battle.
What exactly is the battle? I mean, self-definition is what you do, and my baby's doing it at 18 months old. I wasn't aware that you get a medal for it. And after I say this, and Dr. Drew sort of moves on to the rest of the panel, and everybody is sort of talking about the brilliance and wonder of Caitlyn Jenner. One of the people on the panel, the black guy, he says something about how Caitlyn Jenner is how Caitlyn Jenner does not deserve the award because Caitlyn Jenner is a rich white woman from the hills, which seemed odd because Caitlyn Jenner is a rich white man from the hills. And it always is weird to me when you have people who are willfully deluding themselves about things like, is Caitlyn Jenner a man? Okay, if you don't think Caitlyn Jenner is a man, then I dare you to date somebody who is exactly like Caitlyn Jenner as a straight male. If you think that Caitlyn Jenner is actually a woman, then I hope that you are perfectly willing to engage in sexual activity with someone who still has all of the male apparatus. Because that seems to be the argument that you're making. If gender is not only completely in the head, but also we're all supposed to recognize your version of your own gender, it's going to make things kind of awkward in the boudoir, to say the least. And all the time I'm sitting there thinking, this is a mental hospital. This is crazy. Caitlyn Jenner is a man. Caitlyn Jenner is genetically a man, biologically a man, has the genitals of a man, has the brain structures of a man. Caitlyn Jenner is a man. And we're all sitting here pretending Caitlyn Jenner is not a man. Why? Well, because it's politically correct to do so. So humoring the delusional is now not just politically correct, you will be punished if you do not. So all of this is going on. And finally, I break in. I say, why exactly are we mainstreaming delusion? And that's pretty much when everybody decides to go hyena.
Being brave is being yourself, and being transgender is about the bravest thing you can do. Did she deserve the award? Yes.
Why are we mainstreaming delusion?
It's not delusion.
Why would you call it delusion?
Because Bruce Caitlyn Jenner, I'll call him Caitlyn Jenner.
No,
because
it's
that's
her. You're not being polite to the pronouns.
Because
Disrespectful.
Okay, hold on. Polite to the pronouns. I'll stop it there for 1 second. Polite to the pronouns. First of all, you can't be polite to words. Words are inanimate, gang. But this is the level of discourse that some of the panelists were engaged in. It's not polite to the pronouns. Okay, first of all, even if pronouns had feelings, I think that pronouns would probably want you to use their dictionary definition. For example, when I say chicken, I don't mean dog. I mean, fascinating, right? When I say about a noun, right? When I say chicken, I don't actually mean dog or cow or monkey. I actually mean like the animal known as a chicken, by all humanity known as a chicken. When I say he, I don't mean a woman who thinks she's a man. I don't mean a woman who had an appendage sewn onto her. I don't mean a woman who cut out her breasts. I mean a man. He. I thought all of this was kind of basic. But the left's perversion has gone so far that it's not even basic anymore. So it's disrespect. So let me get this right. I am disrespecting the pronouns by using the definition of the pronouns. But the folks on the left are not disrespecting the pronouns by using the pronouns to describe precisely the opposite of what the pronouns were established to actually say. If you like that, it evolves from there, gang. Forget about the disrespect. Facts don't care about your feelings. It turns out that every chromosome, every cell in Caitlyn Jenner's body is male with the exception of some of his sperm cells. It turns out that his brain structure is male. It turns out that he still has all of his male appendages. How he feels on the inside is irrelevant to the question of his biological status.
I don't agree with that. I'm not on that train. I'm not on that train.
And everybody, oh, well.
I'm going to call her she.
We're not going to get on that train. No. And everybody jumps in. No, that's not me. I'm not going to say, because we all have to engage in the delusion. There's no social pressure, though, says Colin Cowherd. No social pressure at all. We're not on that train. No. We're not on that train. Okay, this is bizarre world, but it gets even more bizarre. Because then Dr. Drew, instead of answering the biological point, decides he's going to go to Zoe Tour. He goes to Zoe Tour. And Zoe, who used to be Mike, and is a man who has had the transgender surgery, so inverted his genitalia and removed some of them, and has had hormone treatments, and all the rest of it, he goes to Zoe Tour. And that's when it starts to go off the rails, because instead of arguing the biology, instead of talking about the points that I was making, Zoe Tour decides to get insulting.
So you don't know what you're talking about. You're not educated on
Would you like
genetics.
to discuss the genetics? Or
Well, no,
what
no.
are your genetics?
So I'd stay away from the genetics and back to the brain scans.
You cut that out now, or you'll go home in an ambulance.
Okay, so here's what's happening on the tape, in case you can't see it. Okay, so he says that I don't know the genetics, and I say, can we discuss the genetics? And Dr. Drew says, let's just discuss the brain scans. And I say to Zoe Tur, who's called me ignorant, I say, what are your genetics, sir? Now, what pissed him off, apparently, is the use of the word sir, because now I'm saying that he's a male. Mainly I'm saying this because he's a male. You know, like in objective reality, how he's a dude. I'm saying that not because I mean for it to be insulting. There are other males on the panel. I am a male. I had never been aware of the fact that to name a male was insulting. It is not an ethnic slur. It is not some sort of degrading thing. In fact, I call all males sir. Particularly when I disagree, I call them sir. And as Mike Tur, who has now renamed himself Zoe Tur, is a man, I called him sir. But this was too much. And so Zoe Tur, because I'm not engaging in the delusion together, see, it's not just enough to tolerate, folks. You must accept and celebrate. Zoe Tur turns to me, grabs me by the back of the neck with his left hand, grabs me by the back of the neck, pulls me toward him, and then threatens to put me in an ambulance. And all this time, nobody on the set's doing a damn thing, right? No, nobody's doing anything. Everybody's just sitting there watching this. And, I mean, honestly, I'm taken aback because this is not normal behavior, okay? This has never happened to me before. Certainly not on national television. It's not normal behavior when you're in a conversation with someone for that person to threaten you with bodily harm while grabbing you. That's called battery. And in this case, it's likely assault and battery since he was also threatening further bodily harm. And as I'll explain, that wasn't the only threat of the evening from Zoe Tur, nor was it the only threat of the next 24 hours from Zoe Tur. Clearly a mentally stable woman. By the way, this is how all women react. When women are deeply upset about something, I have 3 younger sisters. I have a wife. I have a mother. I have a daughter. When women react to things, I know that typically what they do is they threaten you with physical bodily harm. That's not male at all. No. That's a deeply feminine aspect. And later, I was talking to my mother, an actual female, and she had seen this, and she said, at that point, she said, you're not acting very ladylike. It did not occur to me to say that at the time, mainly because I was so taken aback by the whole situation that I was just kind of shocked. Now, what's amazing about this, and you'll hear it play out the rest of the show, what was amazing about this is that the media have now equated me saying sir to a guy and him threatening me with bodily harm while exercising himself, while exerting himself in what is legally called battery. Battery is unwanted touching. When you touch somebody and you threaten them, that's battery. And for those who are wondering, yes, I fully intend on pressing charges because you don't get to get away with battery and assault on national television, criminal threats on national television. You don't get away with that simply because you're a member of one of the left's beloved protected victim classes. No, you don't. Because let me tell you something. If this situation had been reversed, and it never would because I'm a polite and decent human being, if this situation had been reversed, and I had grabbed Zoe Tur, a transgender woman, by the neck and said, I'm going to send you home in an ambulance, I would have spent the night in jail. I would have spent the night in jail, and I would have been prosecuted for hate crimes, and my career would be over. But Zoe Tur, no. The entire leftist media has come out to Zoe Tur's defense, saying that, after all, I had it coming because I used the word sir. Amazing. And it just goes downhill from here. You'll hear me respond, and then you'll hear the entire panel jump in, not to say that it's wrong to threaten guests on a national television show with bodily harm, but to say that I had it coming, of course. Because after all, I hadn't respected Zoe Tur's truth. You know, as opposed to the actual truth, like the biological facts, the facts of life. I had not respected Zoe Tur's truth. And thus, I had to be castigated. And thus, if I were treated with bodily physical harm, that would have been totally fine, totally acceptable, and totally okay. Yeah, these folks on the left, they're big freedom fighters on behalf of free speech, aren't they? Yeah, that seems mildly inappropriate for a political discussion.
No, I know. Well, wait. To be fair, but to be fair, you're actually being
Hey, guys.
rude.
You're more. No.
And that's not fair.
I'm sorry, it's not rude to say that someone who's biologically
called
a
me
male
sir.
is a male.
You just
Someone
called
who's
me sir.
biologically male is a male.
But Mr. Shapiro, you knew very well that saying that to Zoe would be egregiously
It's
insulting.
not a matter of insulting or inflammatory.
It
It's
is.
a fact.
No, well,
You are a male.
Sir, you're right. Hey, on paper, what is a fact is a fact, and I can't deny that.
That was my personal favorite part of this entire routine. On paper, you're right. On paper, you're totally right. No, not on paper. In biology. Paper has nothing to do with it. On paper, Zoe Tur's probably a chick. In biology, Zoe Tur is not. On paper, you're right. It degrades from there. The entire panel decides that I am the bad guy, of course, because, of course, I'm the bad guy. I'm not a member of the victimized class, gang, don't you see? And as a non-member of the victimized class, that means that no matter what the aggression is on the other side, I must be one of the aggressors. In fact, I loved the headline over at The Wrap today. The headline at The Wrap said, transgender activist, Breitbart editor-at-large, nearly come to blows. Well, no, not really. I mean, I didn't threaten anyone at any time, nor did I even imply that I would be interested in threatening anyone at any time, because I'm not interested in threatening anyone at any time. Someone grabbed me by the neck and threatened me on national television, but I guess we came close to blows, according to the mainstream media. Amazing. When asked for comment, they said that they didn't feel any need to correct the headline, of course, because they didn't want to, let their readers know the truth. Okay, so this continues. Rolando Watt was one of the people on the panel. I couldn't remember her name. This is the black lady on the panel. And she says we need to show
There's some
tolerance.
very startling statistics that are out that say that 80% of us know somebody who's gay or bisexual or even transvestite or lesbian, but only 1% of us know somebody who is in transition. So this is a new discussion for us. A lot of it is very scary for a lot of people. But that's, I think, whether we agree with the whole Caitlyn transition or not, the reality is that we are in a state as humanity right now where we need to exercise a little bit more tolerance. We need to understand the things that we don't understand a bit more. Instead of making inflammatory comments, maybe we have a little bit more tolerant.
Inflammatory comments. Okay, let me say something about tolerance. As I said earlier, no one is saying that if Mike Tour wants to cut off his genitals, that he can't do that. No one I'm aware of has ever said that. No one is saying that Caitlyn Jenner can't chop up his chest. But I am going to say that you don't get to change an entire society's definition of gender because it's convenient for your mental illness. Where's your tolerance for the rest of society? Why isn't tolerance run both ways? I mean, I'm happy to tolerate sitting next to a transgender activist and having a discussion. Apparently, the transgender activist is significantly less tolerant. Tolerance, you see, only runs one way. And naturally, this is how it goes. So, I say what I say. I say that Zoe Tur is a man because Zoe Tur is a man by any objective definition, meaning any non-subjective in Zoe Tur's head definition. And Zoe Tur then turns around and starts calling me names because this is the only thing the left can do. As I say in my book, Bullies, this is the only tactic the left has. You're uncaring, you're cruel, you're unkind, you're full of hate, you're mean, blah, 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 because you have no arguments. And also because you actually don't have compassion for other people. All you care about is making yourself feel good. All you truly care about is that unearned sense of moral superiority that comes along with pretending that everybody else is a hater gang. So here's Zoe Tur going after me. And again, the media portrays this as an act of defense against my brutal aggression in calling a man sir.
You have to deal with people like this, the hatred, the people that, that come out against you and say,
I'm calling you delusional. I wasn't kidding. Is it hate?
yeah, that's hatred.
Okay.
Okay, and Dr. Drew jumping in, you call him delusional, that's hatred. No, it isn't. It's not hatred. As I've said on the program before, I have mentally ill relatives. I don't hate them. I love them. They were delusional when they were mentally ill. They know that. And you don't pretend delusion doesn't exist. Honest to God, if this were the case, if labeling somebody delusional meant you hated them, every doctor on planet Earth is a hater because virtually every doctor has had to deal with a delusional patient and inform the delusional patient that the patient is delusional. Virtually every psychiatrist has to do this. Do doctors hate their patients? Or are they trying to help them by not engaging in a delusion? I'm not sure where Dr. Drew went to medical school, but it seems to me that probably sometime in his practice he had to inform somebody that what they were experiencing was not real. That perhaps they ought to be on psychiatric drugs, for example, because they were experiencing delusions. Did he hate them? Did he hate them? According to Dr. Drew, I guess he did. I guess he hates everybody.
This is just somebody that's
I don't hate you. I have
Yes,
sympathy
of
for you. I
course.
feel terrible for you.
No, you do hate. You're consumed with hatred. That is who you
Really?
are. You're a little
You know
man.
me?
You're a little man.
And this is how it goes, right? Here's this guy trying to emasculate me. You're a little man, as though this is emasculating to me. Right, and you're a large man who thinks he's a woman. So what? Is this supposed to get my goat somehow? Because it doesn't. My physical stature is of no consequence to this particular conversation. And this notion that I'm full of hate because I want to see people pursue actual cures, actual treatments that work. I mean, I say this to Dr. Drew later on the panel. This entire conversation has shut down any possibility of trying to find actual solutions for people who suffer from gender identity disorder, which is a much better label than gender dysphoria, which means nothing. Gender dysphoria is a politically correct nonsense label from the DSM-5. Gender identity disorder, which is what this was called up until 2013, is a significantly more appropriate label for what we're talking about here because it is a gender identity disorder. The problem is not with your genitals. The problem is in your mind. But, Zoe Tur just calls me names, and according to the left, this constitutes Just a brilliant defense.
Yeah, actually, I do.
Let's stick to the topic. Let's not these first.
But I mean, that's okay. He can be whatever he wants. But the point is,
right. That's what this is all about, isn't it?
it is.
Isn't that what this is all about? Let's all come together. He can be whatever he wants. Well, no, that's not what you were saying 5 seconds ago when you were threatening to beat me up. It's not what he would say 5 seconds later either. When I'll fast forward a little bit, when Zooey Tour, after both segments were over, there were 2 segments. During the break, no one would look at me, right? Because I had said the unsayable. I had said that a man is a man. Ooh, cruel, inhumane, brutal. I said a man is a man. That means no one can look at you. And one of the other panelists, the black fellow who was sitting next to Zooey Tour, turns to Zooey Tour and says, well, I'm sure he felt the same way about black people in the 1930s. And I actually stopped him. I said, what are you talking about? Why would you possibly say that? What a nasty and cruel thing to say. Of course, he ignored that because this is what the left does. Remember, if you're part of the victimizing class, it doesn't matter what you say or what you do or what truths you are spouting. All that matters is you are the victimizer, no matter even if you are the victim in a particular setting. So during the break, the producers are all hovering around Zooey Tour. Are you okay? Are you okay? Can we move your seat? One of the producers kind of sidles up to me and says, are you okay? I say, yeah, I'm fine. I'm all right. And the next segment begins. Okay, so the segment ends. Fast forward, the segment ends. And Zooey Tour turns to me as he is leaving the set, because I have a couple of more segments on Donald Trump. Zooey Tour turns to me as he's leaving the set. And Zooey Tour says, I'll see you in the parking lot. And I said, no, you won't. And Zooey Tour leaves. Now, after all the segments are over, I go outside. The producers are all kind of, one of the guests, who shall remain nameless, sidles up to me and says, you know, you were right. I said, yeah, I know I was right. She's whispering, I know, you were kind of right there. I said, yeah, no, I know. I'm aware. One of the producers comes out from backstage, whispers, you know, you were kind of right there. I said, yeah, I know. But everybody has to whisper it, you know, because if you say it out loud, ooh, you never know what ramifications that could carry. So the producers say, are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. And they say, well, I said, you know, he did say, I mean, you heard him. He said it pretty loudly. Other people heard. He said that he was going to meet me in the parking lot. Do we know that he's left? Not because I'm particularly afraid of this particular human being. Even if he happens to be a very macho man, I've a fair bit of foot speed. So if worst came to worst, I could always flee using my bravery. But in any case, I said to them, you know, I don't want to see the headlines in tomorrow's paper, conservative pundit beats up transgender activists in parking lot. I just don't see that going well. So can you please check that he's left? So they check the key cards and they say he's left. And then they have security escort me out to my car because they say, I was fine with the key card check. They said, we'll have security escort you out to your car just in case. So they have security escort me out to my car because this is how the tolerant left operates, folks. The tolerant left, when it comes to facts they don't like, they're not so tolerant, it turns out. Speaking of which, this whole debate continues, and after Zooey Tour calls me a little man, which, by the way, I'm not sure why that's supposed to be an insult. Zooey Tour, by the way, would later go on Twitter and threaten to curb stomp me, which for people who don't know what that is, curb stomping is where you force someone, if you've ever seen American History X, somebody does this in the movie, it's horrifying. It's where you force somebody to place their open mouth on a curb. You bite the corner of a cement street curb, and then the assailant stomps on your head. So Zooey Tour threatened to do that on Twitter. And what was the justification? I love this. Zooey Tour tweets out, quote, somebody tweeted out to Zooey Tour, transgendered people shouldn't be threatened with violence. I agree, which is why no one did that. But those who disagree with their views should be. And that was a sarcastic tweet from somebody. And Zooey Tour writes back, being called sir and mentally ill is violence. So you see, if you're called sir, that is the equivalent of grabbing somebody by the neck, threatening to put them in an ambulance, and then later on Twitter threatening to curb stomp them. These are all equivalent. And the media buys into this. The media love it. The media, it's all the same. They're both bad. Moral equivalent. Cycle of violence. You see, folks, if you refuse to buy into the delusion, what you really deserve is to be physically pummeled. Zooey Tour finishes up his little routine.
Yes, it is. But there's ramifications for hate speech. But the point
What are
is
those
that...
ramifications?
Let me finish.
Go ahead, finish, Zoe.
Little boy.
Zoe.
Zoe. So, I'm sorry.
It's all everybody. Come on.
Oh, let's keep the conversation civil. Everybody? Everybody? What is this everybody routine? And suddenly the emotions kick in. And Samantha Shacker, who is one of the people who is on the regular Dr. Drew panel, she jumps in and goes immediately insane. It sounds like this.
And at the end of the day, can you look at the fact that more than 50% of transgender youth attempt suicide because of discrimination, because of shame? Does that try to alter the way that how you should project your thoughts? What if they're watching right now? What if there's a teen out watching right now that is struggling with who they are, living their truth?
Let's talk about some of the biological facts for 1 second.
No, I want you to answer me. What would you say to a teen right now that really believes 100?
Allow me to answer your question.
I'm full of emotion right now because people die.
I've noticed.
Clearly, it doesn't bother you because you're sitting there stone-faced and cold-hearted.
Of course it bothers me when people commit suicide, which is one of the reasons I don't believe that transgender surgery is the solution, considering that the suicide rate after transgender surgery is precisely the same as the suicide rate before transgender
Yeah, because then technically they're not passing, and then they're open for more discrimination.
Okay, the transgender suicide rate is approximately 0.8 in every 100. The only comparable suicide rate in human history of which I am aware is Jews living under Austrian and German rule during World War II. To liken the treatment of transgenders in the United States or the Western world to Jews living under Nazi... No, I'm actually comparing apples to apples in terms of the suicide rate. But logic did not triumph, folks. The argument that I'm making there is incredibly simple, right? The argument that I'm making there is you say society causes transgender suicide rates to be that high. First of all, it's not 50%. It's 0.8 in every 100 transgenders try to commit suicide on an annual basis over the course of life. Supposedly 41% of transgender people will attempt suicide at some point. The left says this is all because people are mean and say he instead of she. So if Zoe Tour goes home tonight and kills himself, then that would be my fault for saying, sir, that would have nothing to do with the mental illness that caused Zoe Tur to cut off his own genitalia. Astonishing. And so the point that I'm making is, well, if you're going to blame it on society, if you're going to suggest that society is responsible for all of this, then wouldn't you also have to suggest that the societal treatment of transgenders is the same as the Nazi treatment of Jews, because that's the only comparable suicide rate in human history. Slaves in America in the 1840s didn't have this kind of suicide rate. So are you really claiming that transgenders are treated worse by society than slaves were? Or just about the same as Jews were in Nazi Germany after the beginning of World War II? Is that what you're claiming? Because in order to say that transgender folks are completely normal, mentally speaking, there's no mental illness whatsoever, and their mental illness has nothing to do with their suicide rate, you have to blame it on society. And the only times in human history that we have seen a society cause high suicide rates is when the treatment is as bad as the Nazis toward the Jews. So, really? But logic, again, would not triumph because, of course, truth is hating now. Facts are hating. And so the entire panel goes ballistic, of course, and they say that I have to stop hating, stop hating, stop hating, stop hating, stop hating. By the way, this guy's going to assault you in the parking lot.
And stop hating, tolerate.
It's not. I'm happy to tolerate. Whatever people want to do is what they want to do. But the idea that the surgery itself is something to be glorified, to be reveled in, the mental illness.
I think if you can bring up the difficulty that Jewish people have faced because of hatred, then why can't you, as a human, as Dr. Maya Angelou would say, that I am human, so therefore nothing human can be alien to me?
Oh, you mean Maya Angelou, the same lady who said that she hoped that there would be white kids shot by cops? That Maya Angelou?
Why can't you take that position and understand based upon your history?
I don't hate anybody who has a mental illness and is trying to figure out how to fix that.
There might have been people who said...
I'm not going to liken the treatments of Jews under Nazis.
No, I think anytime a life is in trouble, we're all in trouble. We're all in trouble.
The reason I brought that up is as a comparison of the treatments of the two and saying that the suicide rate is similar. So therefore, if the circumstances of the two are different...
the circumstances may not be different. If you have bullying, if you have murders, there is a genocide on transgender children right now. You got to believe
I think we are missing. I think we are going so far afield.
Oh, because it's far afield. Because logic, gang, that's far afield. Apparently, there's a transgender genocide. We haven't heard of it, folks, but the gas chambers are there. The government's grabbing all those transgender kids and shoving them into crematoria. You've been missing it. You've been missing the big story. Thank God some of these panelists are there to inform us of all this. Finally, Dr. Drew tries to bring it all together by, of course, siding with the rest of the panel, because that's what they do on CNN. And even Dr. Drew then proceeds to get the entire medical point wrong. A doctor.
What's the goal of treatment then?
The goal of treatment would be to cure whatever.
Can't cure it. It's not curable.
Okay.
Lots of illnesses are not curable. This one has to not be curable. What's alcoholism? Alcoholism, for instance.
Okay, so let's compare it to alcoholism. Does anyone say that alcoholics are doing fine and they should just continue to imbibe? Does anyone say that? I was unaware that the solution to alcoholism was keep drinking heavily. I was always under the impression that the first solution to alcoholism was to admit you have a problem. But then Dr. Drew continues along these lines, digging himself in a hole that he can't get out of.
Goal?
So the goal would be to allow people to live with it in an appropriate way.
To flourish, right?
To flourish.
Not to require them to assign to one gender or another, but to flourish, right?
Without imposing on the rest of society a necessity for fictionalized thinking. Okay, because that actually is a cost to society. I'm sorry, but my grandfather was bipolar, okay? Yeah. And he thought that the radio was talking to him.
Yeah.
They put him in a mental hospital. They did not tell him the radio was talking to him to allow him to live a better life. They put him into a mental hospital, and then they gave him lithium, which allowed him to live a better life. Looking for better solutions than transgender surgery would be a better solution than pretending that transgender surgery is the cure.
People are looking for treatments all the time. This has been
This is stopping the look.
No, it really isn't.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yes, it absolutely is. Because whenever you stop classifying something as a mental illness and pretend there's nothing wrong with the mind, there's just something wrong with how you deal with it, you stop looking for solutions. You tell me, who else is looking for solutions on the transgender thing? Because if you even say that this is because here's the thing, in order to look for a solution, you have to admit there's a problem. And we're no longer allowed to admit there's a problem. If a man identifies as a woman, the idea is we're all supposed to just go, oh, okay. Well then, I guess everything's fine.
So there is an example of a bottom line thinking man. Give me the facts, give me the truth. Don't mix in all that other stuff. And then a feminine approach, unfortunately by a whole bunch of men, that it is feeling that is important. Okay? Well, feeling is important, but the truth is the answer. Okay? So we can explore our feelings, but exploring our feelings isn't the solution to a problem. Any problem. A work problem, a marriage problem, a gender identification disorder problem. Doesn't matter what the problem is. Exploring your feelings is not the solution. It is part of the process, but truth is always where the solution to the problem lies. So I found it quite interesting. I thought he does quite a good job of pointing those things out, and they just...
It just shows you how far gone our society is. And totally just...
The other male on the panel is Bruce Jenner's son.
What's that?
The other male on the panel is Bruce Jenner's son.
Oh, is that right? The one that says, on paper, you're right?
The guy in the white shirt and the dark hair.
Yeah. On paper, you're right.
Who consequently never got along with his father, But now that he's Caitlyn, is very much in support of, she's so much happier now, So, give it a couple years, and you'll be hearing about the suicide of
Suicide, yeah.
Jenner, who finally came to the realization that this was not the source of her
No, that's not what the report will be. The report won't be who finally came to the realization. No, it'll be that the haters killed her. Yeah, yeah. She was. Yeah, the Christian conservatives drove her to suicide.
By the way, is the fellow that produced it, is he Jewish?
Yeah.
Okay, so did he have his yarmulke?
Keep on. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I thought he did.
Breitbart.com, he sort of took the place of
Breitbart.
Andy Breitbart.
So, but yes, after I saw this, I watched a couple of other things that he's done, and he has one how to convince your liberal friends not to vote for Obama. And he starts off with, if you have liberal friends, first of all, you shouldn't. And then he goes on from there. But he's just matter of fact. He doesn't get emotional. He doesn't get out of control or anything. And that especially makes them mad. Yeah. I'm full of emotion right now because people are dying. There's a transgender genocide. Oh, yeah.
Mike Tour, who's Zoe Tour, he's a traffic helicopter guy for traffic out in LA.
Oh, is that right?
Handsome fella. I was,
Yes, he is.
when I saw that, it's like, wait a second, that's because he was one of the channels we looked at. And then, he doesn't make an attractive woman. No, he doesn't.
No, he definitely didn't make a. Let's see if I can show this one before we current events. Whoops.
Because in reality, if you are thinking that way, there is something wrong with your brain. Now, somebody like our patient who is prevented, to me that's a different story. Yeah.
Here, I don't know how well you can see this, but this is entitled Liberal Lunacy. This is the gentle giant, Mike, whatever his name was. This is the child, Trayvon Martin. This is the terrorist, the American patriots. This is peaceful demonstrations. This is a hero. You know, I have to say that makeup did a lot for him.
Because he was an ugly man.
Ugly man after his surgeries.
Yes.
But the makeup, he's actually quite attractive. In fact, I'm going to call him. I mean, look, that's.
That is horrible.
If you didn't know, then you'd say, that's not bad looking. This is a white man. This is an Indian who may end up being our next president. This is a black woman. You know her, the NAACP lady. And this is a poor woman who had to scrape when they got out of the White House. Okay? So that's what's happening is the redefinition of all of these things to fit people's feelings. Right? I gave you the quote one time back at some point in our teachings that objectivity is wrong because it doesn't take into account people's feelings. That you can't be objective because that doesn't allow for people's feelings. So if I feel like, and actually, I'm going to come out here pretty soon. I am, on the inside, I am a 1% rich person. And therefore I want my money. Okay? Because inside I feel that way. So I should have the money. So you all should give me the money. Okay? All right? All right. Let's go ahead and finish up here. We don't have time to get back into our marriage thing, but we'll get back to that next week and see if we can have some more fun with that. Okay, so in this next week, everyone especially married couples, are going to try to identify circumstances in your marriage or outside your marriage and outside the non-marriage people, school, work life, whatever, identify the times when a female is acting like a female and a male is acting like a male, and what kind of reaction, let me put it this way, what kind of response we can have. I'm going to give you another of my pithy little sayings. Well, I guess I didn't put it down on here. I guess I was going to say it so you all would be impressed. Okay? What was it? I think I just lost it. Oh, yes, here it is. Here's the question that I want you all to think when immediately upon someone saying something, you get that, or doing something, doesn't have to be necessarily saying, but saying or doing something, that you get that feeling that that's not loving, that's not respectful, whatever it happens to be. This is the question I want you to immediately think. Why would someone who loves me say or do that? Okay? Because if you're married, you know that your spouse loves you. We take the filter and we filter by what they say or do over the understanding that they love you. Okay? When she criticizes me, okay, I filter that and say, I don't like that. That was mean. Which, whatever, the word that pops into your mind. What should pop into our mind is, why would she who loves me, who I know loves me, say that? Well, now you know, because what? Yeah. Because she's mean. Because she thinks that loving me is to do one of these. Okay? And so then on the other side of the coin, why would he say or do that? Because he thinks that loving you requires him to do one of those. Okay? So it's what has come to me is that it's not so much that we don't know, it's what we do know. What we do know is wrong. That for me to love my wife isn't doing the things that she would have to do for me. Okay? So that golden rule thing, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, it doesn't work in this case. Okay? It doesn't work that way. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. Okay? Because you have to change it. Instead of fix it, you got to go to communicate. Okay? Instead of bottom line, you have to go to discussion. Instead of teaching, you have to go to let them fix it. Okay? So Why would someone that I know loves me say or do that? And when you do that, you're going to start. You're going to see this. Well, because the woman thinks that to love you need bonding and closeness and relationship and communication and and discussion, endless discussion, and and we're not getting into personal. Yeah, that's a rule. We don't get into those. And
Yeah, I heard that I was at top of this conversation last week.
who told you that?
You did.
Oh, okay.
You told me yourself.
I told you guys not to tell.
Guilty conscience guy.
Who told you that?
So,
How'd you find out?
so what did we discuss about me?
Nothing. I just used examples of these kind of things.
Oh, can I use examples too?
When you are the teacher,
Listen to you, Jackie.
when you are the teacher, yes. But right now we're out of time, so we must go. So please, everyone, bow your heads and pray, and we shall be dismissed. Father, as we close, we thank you for the opportunity to share these things and see them, and we're grateful that we're laughing and having a good time with it, and that there is no physical violence threatened in all of this. We thank you that you have created men and women to complement each other, and it is in discovering how we complement each other rather than how we differ that we find our true love and respect for each other. And we thank you for it in